So, I stumbled upon an infographic on Twitter that piqued my interest. It's by Marchae Grair, a representative of the United Church of Christ. I'm sure if the church knew she was representing them like this, they wouldn't be happy, but I'm just saying. And before you ask, all of this information was publicly accessible and not hard at all to find. 10 ways you can actively reject your white privilege. Now, I don't know how many times we have to do this, but we'll just have to keep debunking these things until they disappear. So, let's begin. Number 1. Take up minimal space during anti-racism dialogues and protests. If you allow us in at all, that is. But I'm not going to get into the separation of races here and how hypocritical you're being, since you're not advocating for separation necessarily. Instead, you're asking us to take up minimal space. Wait, let's think about this for a second. If you don't want me to take up space, you don't want me to be there. So you are advocating for separation of the races. All right, you get your water fountain and I'll get mine. We saw how well that worked out. But I'm not the one advocating for separate but equal. That's you. Asking people to take up minimal space is basically telling them that you don't want them to be involved, which is fine, except you're not going to enact the changes you want, whatever they are, without the involvement of everyone. After all, racism affects everyone. So asking white people to take up minimal space is actively keeping your goals from being achieved. Not to mention, if I had a meeting or protest and asked black people to take up minimal space, you'd call me a racist. Number 2, stop contributing to gentrification and calling it urban development. So I looked up the word gentrification, and it's defined as the buying and renovation of houses and stores in deteriorated urban neighborhoods by upper or middle income families or individuals, thus improving property values but often displacing low income families and small businesses. Key phrase here, upper or middle income families. Nowhere in that definition does it say white families, and if those upper or middle income families are white, that's purely a coincidence. So instead of using the word gentrification, I think you meant to say, stop moving to neighborhoods where the population is non-white, stay in your own neighborhood. Right? Is that what you meant to say? Because gentrification is just rich people pricing out poor people in their own neighborhoods. And I agree, it isn't great. But if you really want to get into issues of race in neighborhoods, we could talk about white flight. You know, that movement of middle-class white families to the suburbs because they were unsafe in the city. Because every time we get a large population of non-whites in a primarily white neighborhood, this happens. So white people are damned if they do, damned if they don't, honestly. Why don't you just pick a place for me to live and make sure it's as far away from you as possible? I'm going to skip number 3 because microaggressions aren't real. Number 4, never invite people of color to the table for the sake of claiming diversity. Gladly. I believe that the world should be a meritocracy, meaning you don't get to be at the table unless you earn that spot at the table. But it's a two-way street. I won't invite you for diversity if you won't demand a place at the table for, wait for it, diversity. I'm going to skip number 5 as well because, well, it's stupid. Number 6, stop lifting up non-confrontational people of color as examples of what POC activism should be. Yeah, you're right. We should be celebrating murderers, thugs, racists, and rioters. And I know who you're referencing here. You're referencing Martin Luther King Jr. Some of us don't even think MLK was that great of a guy, but he claimed to be an example for all black people, so can you blame us for using him as a benchmark? Number 7, call your friends, family, and coworkers out on racism, even if a POC isn't in the room. Most of us already do this, though my definition of racism isn't simply being white. Number 8 makes absolutely no sense to me. Someone is going to have to clarify this. Number 9, realize that all discussions about race aren't for you and be okay with it. Here we go with the separation again. If I told you that you couldn't comment on what it's like to be white, you'd call me a racist again. You get to be in every discussion. Your opinion matters more than mine. Isn't that the very thing you're trying to fight against? How is becoming the person you're fighting against going to solve any problems? Black supremacy will not solve the problem of white supremacy if there is one. It will simply cause a whole bunch of new problems. And finally, my personal favorite, number 10. Recognize that you're still racist, no matter what. Your 10th way to actively reject my white privilege nullifies all the other ways. Why would I do all of this work to try to reject my so-called white privilege if it isn't going to matter because I'll still be racist? If there's absolutely no way for me to not be racist, then isn't it better for me to just embrace my inherent racism and move on with my life? After all, I have bills to pay and a family to take care of. I don't have time to spend all day mulling over why I'm racist. And anyway, if it's not going to make me less racist, then what's the point? Here's what I say. White people, stop being offended when people call you a racist. After all, if there's nothing we can do about it, we should just embrace it and not be offended by the term. Don't let them use a 6-letter word to get under your skin. Eventually, the term racist will lose all weight and they'll have to try to invent some new term to manipulate us with. Because that's all this is. It's attempted manipulation. Don't let them try to control you with silly words. I welcome any and all constructive discussion on this issue. As long as comments are thought out and worth my time to respond, I'll do so. Death threats and any other unsavory comments will not be deleted, but will be ignored. If you have an idea for a story I should do, or you just want to get a hold of me, tweet at me at littlemissskeptic, and follow me on Twitter for updates and opinions about news, politics, and general tomfoolery. If you like my videos, please consider becoming a part of the skeptical family. Your support is so important right now in getting these questions and facts out there. We can't let the leftists bury the facts and push emotion before logic. Please share my videos with anyone you think might enjoy them and urge more people to support those of us who are trying to expose the truth and logic in the world. Thanks for watching.